by Coach Mack. We'll get his opening statement, then we'll go to our radio crew.
Yeah, I thought that was a really that was a good win for our team. I thought coming into the game, Georgia Tech is one of the more experienced teams that we play. Although I don't think they're particularly deep, I think their kids play with an intensity and a toughness. And I thought, early on, Moses Wright sort of served us a lesson on the offensive glass. But over the course of 40 minutes, I thought our guys really competed. We got a lot of stops. We were connected on the defensive end. And I thought, it was one of our better efforts of the year. I thought David Johnson's defense, and I probably haven't talked enough about that because, everybody wants to talk about offense. But think about who David Johnson has guarded, throughout the year. He's been on Sandro. I don't want to butcher his last name for Seton Hall down the stretch in a pivotal game that went down to the wire. We put him on Matthew Hurt, as you guys know, a couple games ago. Now he's on the shortest guy on the floor in Alvarado. And to me, Alvarado has played all year long as a first-team All-ACC player. And to hold him to 3 for 11 with almost as many turnovers as assists, I thought David's length bothered him. We get that type of production out of Sam. That could really bode well for our team. I mean, not many guys get 18 rebounds that don't play the power forward or center position. Thought our will on the offensive glass was really, really good. But, it was a quick turnaround for Georgia Tech. COVID has done some wild things with scheduling. None of the coaches that I know have been complaining. We're just trying to figure out who we play next and how to prepare. And so, Georgia Tech is probably better than they played today. I think Josh has done an amazing job. He's got a crew that plays with great intensity. So it's a good win for our team. And as you guys know, it's a quick turnaround, and we're on a plane tomorrow. And so we can't look in the rearview mirror anymore. We got to look forward.
Chris, I think fans always wonder when a guy comes off a pretty bad game, and David had really struggled at Clemson, and then he comes out right out of the chute and starts lighting it up. Did you have a conversation with him? Was there any talk between that game and this game? Walk us through from that game to the start of this game where he came out with guns a-blazing.
Yeah, well, like I said after the Clemson game in the press conference, I was not really concerned with David, continuing to play poorly. I mean, he's been one of our best players all year long. He's a competitive kid. He cares about winning first and foremost. And so I was expecting him to bounce back. My biggest talk to him, Bob, was about turnovers. And he had a couple decisions that he made tonight that weren't great. And I think, sometimes Dave, because of his size, turns his back on the defense. That's fine on the block. I think that'll help him. But it's not fine in the middle of the floor. And so he's learned the hard way a couple times. The good thing about Dave is he's a very quick learner. But I didn't worry about him going into a funk in terms of playing. It was great to see him shoot the ball like he did. With them playing a zone a lot of the game, we needed him to shoot well. Maybe the dunk got him going in the very beginning of the game. But I'm just really excited about, Dave a year ago was just an average defensive player. He still had all the things you need: length, athleticism, quickness, but no experience. Now he's got experience. And to guard big guys and small guys, Alvarado's the engine of their team. And, he stalled it today. He's one of the best defensive players in the ACC, in my opinion.
You wouldn't have said that last year. That's true. That's a big bit of development.
No question.
So, you don't want to read too much into it, but we talked after the Clemson game that the defense actually in many ways was pretty good. Do you think when you looked at that tape, could you see a defensive effort like you got today where they starting to grasp things you wanted them to do more? Because the defense, by and large, today was pretty solid from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Georgia Tech's difficult to guard. They run a lot of those Princeton actions, and they really started to get away from that in the second half. And I think a big part of them getting away from it is they weren't very effective with it. Now, they did miss some shots in the first half, but some of those shots, Bob, when you put so much attention to DeVoe and Alvarado along with Moses Wright, you want some of the other guys on their team to take shots. You don't want to give them open shots, but that's sort of the plan. Take away their primary scorers. I do think that Clemson is a really good defensive team. They're not as high powered offensively as Georgia Tech is. Georgia Tech can really score the ball, and I think a big part of how Georgia Tech scores a lot of the times is off their defense. They lead the ACC in turnovers, turning people over. For us to only have 9 of them, that's huge. And that kept them out of transition. And they really tried to push the ball today, but holding on to the ball really helped our team.
Early on, you were getting out-rebounded 14-7. At the end of the game, you wound up with a 56-39 edge on the boards. That means from that point to the end of the game, you out-rebounded them 49-25. I mean, the simple answer is to say, well, Sam came in and got every rebound in the building for a while, but it wasn't just him. Was it simply a matter of effort matching their physicality? What did you see? What did you talk about?
Well, a big part of it starts with guarding the ball. If you're getting beat off the dribble and your bigs are in that position, like, do I help on the penetration? If the shot goes up by that guard who's beating you off the dribble, you have no ability to effectively block out a guy like Moses Wright. And the opportunities that we had to block him out, I thought we just weren't physical enough. I mean, he was a man-child that first 5 minutes. Jalen and JJ have to be better. And again, JJ is a true freshman. Jalen's a redshirt freshman. Moses Wright's a senior. He's thicker. He's one of the best players in the league at that position. And that's why it was so good to see Gabe, come in and, present some physicality. Gabe's a thicker body. I thought for a guy that hasn't played a whole lot, Bob, he came in and really helped our team in the paint. I was awesome to see. And, I got to play him more if he's going to be able to do things like he did today. But, yeah, that turnaround was, I think, Gabe and Jalen answered the bell in the second half. Didn't quite answer it in the first half, and then Sam was terrific on the glass.
You talked about how effective David was guarding Alvarado, but collectively on the perimeter, you guys played really solid defense on all the perimeter guys. I saw guys getting over screens better than they have in the baseline out of bounds plays. They had trouble getting the ball in bounds. What were the keys to your defensive game plan? What did you think you did well there to take them out of their game?
Yeah, I think that if you can, have a true understanding of their Princeton stuff, that Alvarado and DeVoe want to come to the ball when they set those screens and guys are backdooring. The backdoorers, for lack of a better word, are guys that are more of their role players. Mm-hmm. And Alvarado and DeVoe are trying to come to the ball. And I thought our guys were locked in on that. It's Princeton-style offense can be a hard prep. We had a few days to really prepare. I thought our guys had really good attention to detail, which certainly helps.
Last thing, they play it obviously very differently, but do you think playing against so much zone today can help you having to go play against Syracuse where all they basically do is play zone?
I'll tell you on Wednesday night. Syracuse's zone is unique. I'll say this: Georgia Tech's zone is very, very unique. I don't think it's as effective as it was a year ago because James Banks was so hard around the rim. Now, having said that, Moses Wright, almost set the minute bowl record for block shots there. But Alvarado, his ability to get his hands on the basketball and out in the passing lane is really scary on film. And I counted, he was playing Florida State. He touched the ball off a dribbler, stripping in the passing lane 11 times in the first 12 minutes of the game, which is outrageous. So that was a big part of it, to be able to have ball security.
Congratulations. Good win.
Thanks, Bob.
Go down to media questions. First from Kent.
Chris, the game that you got from Samuel, numbers aside, but the spots where he was on the floor and the effort he gave, is that the game? Is that what you want to see from him?
Well, it beats the alternative, right? Like Sam is really good in the high post. I think sometimes Sam wraps his mind around, how am I shooting the ball from three? He has a great game today and only takes 1 3. And I think that if he can figure out ways to get to his spots of 5 feet, 12 feet, 15 feet, off the dribble, off the catch, he's got a great touch in the mid range. And, we want to utilize that. When you play zone, often you're trying to get the ball to the short corner or the high post. And, we got there not only with Sam, but Dave as well. But Sam's very effective that way. We're going to need him on Wednesday night as well. But I love the fact that he can get 18 rebounds in a game. Shows me that we need more out of him consistently. He knows that, and we know nobody puts more time into the game than Sam. And that's why you want it so badly for a guy as his coach.
Shannon, and then Tim.
David made more threes today than he made all of last season, and obviously has more opportunity this year with this roster. But what has it taken to get him more comfortable and to look to take those shots?
Well, I think DJ's always been a better shooter than I think people give him credit for. A year ago, I think that wasn't necessarily his role. He didn't have as many minutes on the floor to get really comfortable. He had Ryan McMahon and Jordan Wara, and even Dwayne Sutton. 2 of those 3 guys are elite level shooters. So Dave's job really a year ago was to try to make plays and get in the lane and be harder to guard when we didn't have a lot of playmakers. And so I think that David's always been a much better shooter. But when you only take 2 or 3, sporadically, Shannon, your percentage doesn't look great over time. You go 1 for 3 in a game. Next game, maybe you go 0 for 2. Next thing you know, you're like 20%. People are saying you can't shoot. Dave's a much better shooter. And I think, you're seeing that this year.
And real quick, what's going on with Josh Nickelberry? Do you think he'll be able to play at Syracuse?
So, we got x-rays and MRIs, and nothing's seriously wrong with him. He had a big-time dunk in practice and landed on his wrist and practiced the rest of the day. So that sort of gave us a little comfort, thinking there's no way he could have broken it and kept playing, but you never know. But so it's a little swollen. It just hurts when he follows through and passes. I'd like to think that, with treatment over the next couple days, we can get him back. I think it's too early to say, like, if he can play against Syracuse.
Tim?
Yeah, Chris, you were fairly critical of Sam after the Virginia Tech game, and he's lost his starting job for a couple of games. Do you think that your comments got to him in any way, and or not starting did, because this was a pretty remarkable effort today?
Well, I mean, my interaction with Sam is a lot more than comments through the media. I'd like to think that, I can sit down with a guy, whether it's right before practice, whether it's in my office, one-on-one setting. So there's a lot more that goes into maybe my comments in a press conference. I think if you're a competitor and a guy that loves the game and puts a lot of time in, and, you go from being a starter to coming off the bench, yeah, it should tick you off a little bit, and then that's not the reason that it was done. It's just he wasn't very effective. And I try to be candid with you guys and candid with Sam. And so today, the shoe was on the other foot. Quinn wasn't very effective in the first half. Sam was playing his tail off. So how do we start the second half? Sam coming on the floor as a starter. So I don't necessarily get hung up with who starts and who plays. I do need Sam to be more consistent and as aggressive as he was today. And I hope that today's a step in that right direction, Tim.
A follow-up, was this as good an effort, just in terms of effort, that you've seen out of him, or is he capable of more?
I don't want to say like more, because I think then we look at production, but I think he's definitely capable of being more consistent, and we need him for us to be, a consistent team. And a big part of us not playing well at Clemson was David not playing well, and David knows that. And it's just, can we get our younger guys to play a little bit more consistent and be reliable? They're giving great effort on the defensive end to hold Clemson to what we did, to hold Georgia Tech to 58, to Duke the game before, their lowest point total of the year. We're battling, but offensively, we have to be able to be a little bit more consistent with decision making and running harder offense. But I'd like to think that today was a step forward, and now we've got to look forward and not feel good about this game and have that in our the front of our mind for the Syracuse game.
Thank you.
Go to Tyler and then Russ.
Hey, Chris, you had mentioned on Saturday that you had liked how Sam had responded to this situation. Just what little things have you seen in the past couple of games or in practices that might have led to a day like this?
As I said before, I don't think anybody on our team puts more time into their own individual game than Sam. And, usually when you invest more, it means more. And so I never thought that Sam would be a guy that sort of, would run and hide when things haven't gone well for him personally. And so I need him to play with some fire. I thought he did that today. I think he's played that way really the last 2 or 3 games, maybe not necessarily getting these numbers, which are terrific, but just being way more consistent. And that's what we need out of Sam, whether that results in him being a starter or coming off the bench. I think any guy on our team would take, 30 minutes and have the role that they did today. And if it means he doesn't hear his name at the beginning, I would hope that Sam's humble enough that where he doesn't really care about that. He just wants to help the team win.
Russ.
Yeah, Chris, Russ Brown, you've talked about looking forward. Let's do that. You've got 2 road games coming up. I think some of the thoughts before the season with the lack of crowds and so forth led people to believe that home teams weren't going to have quite the advantage they've had in the past, but yet they're winning. Home teams in the ACC are winning at about the same clip they always have. Wondered if you were surprised by that and what other factors may be at play.
No, I'm not necessarily surprised. There's a lot that goes into travel, I think, that fans don't see. It's even weirder than it's ever been. You get to your hotel and it's like you get boxed lunches and go to your room and eat them by yourself. You're sitting feet apart on a bus. We got 2 buses, 3 buses on some trips. It's just a really sterile, awful way to travel. And then you go to a team's home facility where they're used to playing and practicing every day. So, the fans aren't there, and the fans do help. I'm not just getting into the metrics of it, like what the percentages is. There's some things that our guys and every team battles when they go on the road. Georgia Tech battled it today. So it's weird, and I don't think anybody likes it. Just the way the whole season's gone, home or away. But we're all dealing with it as a country.
Last question for Coach Mack from Michael.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned this may have been the team's best performance of the year. Is that something that maybe in the post game you kind of point out to them, or it will become an emphasis when you talk to the team before you play Syracuse? Like, look, guys, look what we can do when we're all on the same page together.
Yeah, they're smart enough to understand that. This isn't like a one shining moment thing. We've had other games where we played our tails off. I'm also smart enough to recognize Georgia Tech had a one-day prep. They played on Saturday. We didn't. That was an emotional game for them coming off 2 straight losses. And they beat one of the best teams in the league who we got drilled by. So there's a little human nature element, I'm sure, with Georgia Tech saying that they can come in here and get us. But so I don't give it much credit and worry about anything other than our next performance and our next game and getting ready for that zone. And that's what we'll do here over the next 48 hours.
Coach, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Back shortly with David.